What's going on, YouTube? It's about that time again. Now you listen to Real Talk 100 coming live to you, and we're gonna hear your story of Daryl Hunt. The man spent almost 20 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. What you know about this channel? Hit the like button before I talk about this. Hit the notification bell when you stay notified when I drop out a new one. Hit the thumbs up you agree. Hit the thumbs down you disagree. So I'd like to thank you for going through my views and likes of my episode Real Talk 100 since day one. Give me your feedbacks about this. So follow me on Instagram on Real Talk 100. Now let's get this started. Now the early days when Daryl Hunt was younger, he had his mother had got killed when he was 9 years old. So Hunt was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in 1965. He had an older brother, Willie, and a younger sister, and children was mostly raised by their material grandparents, William Stroud and his wife. Stroud was a foreman for the city, a street department for years. The children were told their mother, Jean, who had visited their aunt, she was killed when Hunt was 9 years old. And he said that as a teenager, he was haunted by her death ever since. So when the children had attended school for the time, when Hunt was about 15, 16 years old, Hunt had dropped out of high school to go to Monterey, California to be with his cousin, but he returned back to North Carolina when he was 18 years old. So when his grandfather had bequeathed him some money, when his grandfather gave him some money, Hunt had used the money that his grandfather gave him to go buy him an apartment for him and his girlfriend and her younger daughter. So while he was working at construction within that year, he was no longer working, and him and the girlfriend ended up splitting with the girlfriend and lost the apartment. So he started hanging out and running with an old friend named Sammy Mitchell and an older friend who they never seen in years. So when they start hanging out, they decide they wanted to go out and do something. And I guess when they went out there, so this is where it came in. This is where this came in at. So in August of 1984, Deborah Sykes and a young white Mary copy editor was raped and murdered and stabbed in the early morning about 6 a.m. on the way to work. So Deborah Sykes was working for the Censor newspaper out there in Winston-Salem. She had recently started working there, had returned to her home in July from the Chattanooga News Free Press in Tennessee. So experts described that the crime was usually vicious rape and murder, in which she was also sodomized and stabbed 16 times. So the witness had placed Sammy Mitchell and Daryl Hunt, which is two African American men, near the scene. So when they went out there to find out what happened, but they wasn't positive with the identification. So the experts had criticized the way for the lineup and conduct in which is Hunt had identified. So when they went out there, so back then, they seen two African American men out there to look at the crime scene. So now they just jumped up and said that they had did it all together. Hit the like button. So when the experts start criticizing the way the lineup was, so they took Daryl Hunt and his friend to a lineup. So they took him to the station, took him to an interrogation room, and had him for lineup. So when Hunt was identified, nothing to the police officer who conducted of the lineup, they really pointed at Hunt as the suspect and have influenced the witnesses. Secondly, the one lineup Hunt photo has a different background than those other men. So the police had talked to Margaret Crawford, Hunt's other underage girlfriend, who was working as a prostitute at the time, who changed her account several times. So it was no physical evidence linked to this man to the crime. But on September 14th, the police charges Hunt for first-degree murder the next day of his arrest. Photo has been published into the newspaper according with him with the vicious murder. So now they went and arrested him and charged him for this murder that they never did no evidence. They didn't find no evidence. They didn't find no witnesses or nothing like that. They had some phony witnesses that wanted them to say that he did it. So Hunt has no criminal record of violent crimes or sex offense at the time that he became a suspect. So the former FBI agent Greg McCrae, who specialized in developing psychological profiles of sex offenders, said that the usually such a violent crimes as psychs was committed by someone with a history of a violence against women. So Daryl Hunt never laid a finger on a woman before. He never beat on a woman. Never. So by him being a young thug person, he sit around. He been going through some stuff by his mama being killed when he was 9 years old. He got put out of his house. Him and his girlfriend broke up. So basically, he decides he want to go hang out. When he went and hang out, they seen something happen. They immediately seen police and the yellow tape already out. But they ended up getting charged because they was the only two blacks was there. Hit the like button. So, but I'm going to tell you this. It's so many blacks been framed and been to prison and did years for something they didn't do. And they go in there and they sitting there, they had to stay in there, no bail, no nothing. But a real suspect end up doing a short sentence versus a person that's been framed for something he didn't even do, been there for a long time. Hit the like button. So in 1985, Hunt was convicted of rape and first-degree murder of Sykes. The jury has 11 whites and one black man. The three alternatives was also white. The country population was 25% of black. According to the later discussion about the jury forming members, has been difficult times with the case, intentionally voting 7-5 in the favor of guilt. Ultimately, they did vote unanimously that he was guilty of a first-degree murder and a separation of vote of sentencing. Hunt was eligible for the death penalty because none of those juries voted for the capital sentence. Instead, he been sentenced to life in prison. Now, North Carolina, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, got more white people than blacks there. And it's a much of a prejudiced town that you most likely gonna be framed for a murder for something you didn't even do. Like if you move out there, and you go out somewhere and then you go to the store, they'll pick you up and says, is you the person that killed somebody? Or you the one that you, and have you for a lineup, and they'll allow you. It could be somebody else. They own kind could have killed that girl. Hit the like button. That'd be another. Like I said, it could be one of their own kind. It could be a crooked cop could have killed that, raped that girl, and killed that girl, and got this man all that time. Now, he was indicted again in 1990 for the crimes against Sykes under the new county district attorney Mitchell was also indicted that year in Sykes' death, but was never brought to trial. Warden Sparrow was a defensive incumbent Donald K. Trudell in a 1986 Democrat primary for a district attorney, largely due to a backlash for the black community over a latter's handling of Hunt's trial. Hunt defense attorney gained a change to venue for his client's trial, as the case has been widely publicized. Offering a plea bargain to Hunt that would have set him free, rather to be admit guilt. Hunt turned down the deal. Now, they was going to give him a deal. They wanted him to plead guilty. I'm going to tell you why he turned the deal down. Because he didn't do this. Why you gonna get me something? Why you gonna have me take a plea deal for something I didn't even do? I ain't even late. But where is the evidence that he did this? Where is the evidence? He, as a matter of fact, he was gonna become a football player. He had played for the University of Oklahoma. Then he went to Oklahoma. Then he played for the Houston Oilers back then, before all this was happening. If I'm mistaken. Before this is happening. So now, the same eyewitness testified that two of the jailhouse informers, the trial took 4 weeks. The defense had tried to show that the eyewitnesses was reliable. Hunt was tried in 1990 by an all-white jury from a River County and convicting him of Sykes' rape and murder. So next, he's been sentenced to life and returned to prison. So they did a trial. So he took it to trial, and it turned it to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So he been returned back to prison. Now, let me tell you this. By the late 1980s, the new form of forensic testing had become available during the DNA analysis. Hunt sought to have his DNA tested and compared of the material collected in Sykes' crime. In 1994, Hunt's DNA was tested, as was his form of his semen and other case evidence. Hunt did not have the match to the DNA in the semen collected by Sykes' body, showing that he could have not committed this rape. In addition, the prosecution tests the DNA of Mitchell Gray, each of whom has been implicated in some instance. And Sykes' husband, the DNA in the cement matches none of them. But the prosecution still contend that Hunt was involved in the murder by the unknown assailant. Neither Fauquier County judge near or the appellate court granted Hunt for a new trial based on the evidence. So they still think that he did it, even though it wasn't no DNA sample. It wasn't no. They tried the DNA, and none of it was a match. So they keep saying he did it. He did it by him being. You up in there with a bunch of whites. This is a white judge with white jury. They want to nail. They want to railroad him. Daryl Hunt has been railroaded for crime he didn't even do. So when Hunt supporters believe strongly that because the assault was at heart of the case, the related murder changes were in question. But the prosecution suggests that Hunt could have been involved in the murder, even if not the rape. And the third man might have been involved with the murder with him and another. So it's supposed to be 3 people supposed to be in on this rape. 3 people supposed to be in on this. 3 people. So if they looking at him like he the mastermind, like he the one told them to do it. Hit the like button. So the state changes its theory of the crime to fit a new DNA evidence rather than reinvestigate the case. Hunt's attorney filed a series of appeals. He filed appeal after appeal after appeal, but every time he filed an appeal, he lost. He loses these appeals because they trying to say that he did it, or give him life. This is what the juries in the room conversating about the case. Oh, he did it. Give him life. But they don't realize that Daryl Hunt haven't hurt nobody. So, again, on December 2003, Hunt's defense prevailed in getting the DNA collected from the rape and murder to be run for the first time against the state database. A match was found with the DNA of Will E. Brown. I'm going to call him I don't know his first name, but I'm going to call him Will. Will Brown. Also was a resident of Winston-Salem. He was being a suspect in the 1985 rape and slashing a young white woman that had circumstances similar to the Sykes. But he never got prosecuted for that. According to Regina Lane, who has gone to the police in 1985 about attack on her, especially because the similarities to the Sykes case of officers discouraged her from pressing charges. So the officers trying to stop her from pressing charges because they hiding something. It's something that they hiding that they don't want him to want her to press charges, but she knew the information. She had the answers. Hit the like button. She had the answers of who the hell killed Sykes. Because they wanted to keep that boy in there. He wants to keep him in there. So I had looked over some stuff, but I never get a chance to read his story or nothing like that. So I'm just going by what the hell happened with the jury, the judge, and the FBI. So the Sykes Administration Review Committee concluded that Winston-Salem police investigator made numerous mistakes and not connected Lane's rape with Sykes' murder. They was making so much mistakes, they wanted to keep Daryl Hunt in prison. They wanted to keep him in prison, so they want to start changing stuff around, doing stuff, going to the evidence room. And basically, they over there falsifying in order to keep that boy in there. Then they run the witnesses away that has the answers. Because you know what, police can be very, very sneaky too. So I'm saying like this. So when questioned by the police after the DNA matches to Sykes' case, Brown confessed to the 1994 rape and stabbing to death of Sykes. Brown confessed it ultimately results in the full exoneration to release of Daryl Hunt in 2004. So Will Brown went and confessed on killing Sykes in order to let Daryl Hunt out. See, let me tell you, he already did a 1986 murder. Will Brown already committed that crime. Already, the 1985 rape and slashing of a white woman. So when Brown confessed ultimately results of a full extortion to release of Daryl Hunt in 2004, who by then had served more than 19 years of a life sentence for a crime he denied committing, on February 6, 2004 at the Superior Court, Judge Anderson Coroner held a release hearing of Hunt. Sykes' mother, Evelyn Jefferson, took the stand and then criticized the judge for proposing to release a man that she still believed he was a murderer and pleading him guilty. But when given a chance to speak, Hunt offered her and the Sykes family of his condolence of his loss and forgave everyone for the years he had spent in prison. So Judge Cromer vacates Hunt's murder conviction in a case. The case against Hunt was dismissed with prejudice. Meant that Hunt could not try again in a murder. So now when he got out, when they beat the case, after Hunt has been released, his attorneys began to negotiate with the city of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, over his wrongful conviction and the period within Sykes committed of the investigation, how the city had responsible for his case from the pain and suffering. So on February 9, 2007, the Winston-Salem settled with Hunt, awarded him with $1,650,000. He used much of the money to support his effort to help others in 2004, and Hunt received another settlement of $358,545 under the state law, and provides $20,000 of every year. He gets $20,000 every year. Hit the like button. Daryl Hunt gets $20,000 every year. They paid him 19 years of his life, and they paid them every year for every year. So when his friend, when his friends was worried about Hunt, and Hunt had told his friends he might be diagnosed with cancer, and he had a terminal ill or whatever. So when he went and he was diagnosed with depression, with all the stuff he'd been going through while he was locked up in prison for wrongfully accused him of something he didn't even do. Accused him of a rape and a murder. And it's another thing that he and a medical examiner, when he went and got checked, it wasn't no type of cancer. It was terminal illness. So on March 13, 2016, Daryl Hunt had died from his injuries of terminal ill. So now I don't know what he was dying from. He will start using drugs for number one. He lost a lot of weight, and the police later had announced that he had fatally shot himself. So if he shot himself by the police, so if he was suffering from depression, these are all the stuff he been going through for 19 years of pain and suffering. The money don't mean nothing. Anybody get money. When you get money, you still not happy because you got to feel your pain of what you had go through while you in prison doing 19 false years. Hit the like button. So I'm sorry about that, and I apologize about what's going on, because there's a lot of 45, 55, 65% of African American men is in prison right now for a crime they did not commit. They could be in it for 25 years and still fighting the case. 30 years, still fighting the case. 40 years, still fighting the case. Still fighting it. And stuff like this happened with so many African American men that's going to jail for a case they didn't do. And come find out somebody else had did it, but you happen to be at the dang on scene, and they start pointing on anybody, saying anybody did it. So how do you know that them men did it or not? It's a lot of black men out here in the world that can. It's a lot of black men out there in the world. They become serial killers. But you got to get the right person. The right person. Hit the like button. So it's so many racism and so many wrongful convictions in the United States. Over thousands and thousands of people been wrongly convicted. So rest in peace to Daryl Hunt. So thank you for watching Real Talk 100. So we're going to come out with some more new ones. So don't forget, hit the notification bell. We stay notified when I drop out a new one. So y'all stay safe out there. Real talk.